How for all you've done to your bodies. It's still real to me, damn it. I mean.
Hello, guys, and welcome to It's Still Real to Me. I'm your host, Randy. And let me bring in the stars of the show, Mr. JJ Jeremy Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And the man that makes it possible, Mr. RiverCity-Media himself, Randy Cunningham.
The greatest fat man on God's green earth.
There we go.
Green Earth.
We've been away for a while. We had a show a couple of weeks ago in between Christmas and New Year's, I think it was. And then we got together and went and saw the Iron Claw. So let's hear some thoughts on that real quick. Jeremy, your thoughts on the Iron Claw?
Well, I really enjoyed the movie. For one, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it's extremely sad but the Von Erich story is sad anyway. Yes, there was discrepancies that wrestling fans were, the timeline was off and this, that, and the other. And I really don't get into that. I thought the actors did a great job. I thought Zac Efron did a fantastic job as the lead character. One of my things is he looked, because he had to build up for that role, he looked more like Kerry than he did Kevin because of his physique. However, I understand that Kevin was the center point, the main character in this movie. So the best actor goes, to that role. So I get it. I thought he did a good job. The only thing, and I know Randall's gonna mention it if you don't, Howie. Man, that Harley race was spot on. I thought he was fantastic. I thought the Freebird characters that they got to play the Freebirds, I thought they were great. But man, that Ric Flair, it was bad. And he got hammered. I mean, the wrestling community hammered this guy. And I don't go that far, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, he did get hammered. I mean,
it was a great movie.
No jokes about it. He got hammered. I haven't heard the first good impression or words to be described as the Ric Flair person, period. So, Randy, your thoughts on it?
Well, of course, Kevin Anton played Harley Race and was absolutely great. There's a scene where they put him inside.
It was great.
And when it started rolling, first thing old Jeremy said was, "That looks just like Harley Race." So, and the Flair guy that struggled, he did struggle. He was bad. And again, I agree with you guys, though. Once his hair was wet and he was in the locker room, he looked more like Flair. It was more viable. But when that was the worst wig I'd ever seen. So, all that aside,
it was.
I know it's not 100% historically accurate, and I've read a lot of things about even Kevin approved them cutting Chris from the script. And if you really look at it, the combined Mike Von Erich character really was a combination of Chris and Mike in the story. And a lot of they borrowed from Chris and Mike to build the story. I thought they'd done a good job with Kerry Von Erich, which I thought was one of the more critical parts of the story, because while David universally has agreed to be the biggest star, he was only alive till he was 25 years old. So the people who watch wrestling and the fact that he was the only one that was on WWE TV for a long time would recognize Kerry Von Erich and recognize Kerry Von Erich's story. Now, Thomas J. White or J. Thomas, whatever his name was, he doesn't physically look like Kerry Von Erich as much as he captured what I always heard about Kerry Von Erich, which was he was a really good guy. People loved him. but he really, really did live with demons. And while they don't really come out and say it, you see it in his behavior that towards the end, you could really see the addict had took over Gary Von Erich. And there's two scenes in that movie that I will buy the DVD, but there was two scenes in that movie I thought made that movie. One was the compilation of them wrestling all the guys. That's the series where the Freebirds are in it. They're coming into the ring. And then the very ending, which I won't tell nobody, but I don't think you could have got a better ending to that movie that made people leave maybe with a feel good, because up to that point, the last 30 minutes of that movie was about as depressing as anything I'd ever seen. So they at least found an angle that tied it up together that made you think, yeah, you know, that I put it this way. There's a chance you leave that movie and you need to go home and take a Valium. And I think that one scene kind of lets you go home and feel somewhat good about the movie.
I thought one of the two scenes he's going to talk about was when they was waiting to go to the church on Sunday morning, and he was waiting to get in.
I don't know if you guys heard.
Yeah, that was one. That's a good one too.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but at the end of the movie, when we're kind of when it was over, there was some sniffles, and I could hear people sobbing in the theater. Most of it was Randall, but it was people sobbing. No, it really was. It's a really sad story. I'm with Randall. That last scene, I thought that really left you with, a ray of light in all that darkness, and to know that those boys have grown up and are now professional wrestlers, and Kevin seems to be doing well and all that. That's a really good thing to know, considering all he's been through.
I think Jeremy froze up on us. Howie, I will say one thing. There's a lot more feel good in this movie than, I don't want it all to come across as negative. There are definitely some feel good moments in this movie too. There the church, what you're talking about, the church scene. Some of the scenes that are just them being partying crazy teenagers in the 80s are really funny. And Marshall and Ross, I thought one of the best comments about the movie was they loved it all, but they thought their mom was mischaracterized by, in that movie she openly pursues Kevin Von Erich, which they say in real life Kevin openly pursued her. But that provided some of the funniest moments in the movie, is that whole era of it. And some of the lines they used with each other was just hilarious,
Yeah. I thought it was a great movie. Great wrestling movie.
I'm not a big... Go ahead, Randy. I'm sorry.
It should lead to more. I know the box office is not what they expected, but I did read that it's grossed about 18 million right now, and it cost $18 to make it. So hopefully it just leads to more telling of stories that involve the industry.
Well, and the thing about it is, it's just like we talked about, I think maybe our last show, or maybe it's just us talking about, they used to gauge wrestling by TV ratings, by that TV who's tuning in when that live broadcast is going on. And, there's so many ways now that you can watch, you can go back, you can DVR, you can stream stuff. And so really, you could say, okay, the box office is disappointing, but who knows how much revenue that movie's going to generate through streaming, through different avenues.
I think that movie is built for a big number on home video.
Yeah.
I know not a lot of people do it anymore, but if I get a movie I really love, I still go buy the DVD, you know, just to have here. Went and bought Elvis. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I plan on buying this movie. And Chavo, last thing I'll say, Chavo Guerrero did a phenomenal job being the wrestling coordinator.
Yes.
It was very realistic, and Zac Efron said it in one of his interviews. They asked him if he could work a match, and he goes, "If somebody helped me," and even Chavo said, "If somebody helped you through it, I could." So those guys, you know, they may not be able to run a whole program, but they could go in and give you 5 minutes that was WWE, AEW quality good, I think.
So it's a good point right there when it comes to wrestling in general. You got two people and you got a really good partner. It makes you look good. They can carry you. Where if you got two really not good wrestlers, you know, it's not going to be as good.
100%.
If you So yeah, the right I heard somebody say today, Jim Ross on podcast, and they were talking about the Undertaker, his career and everything, and he was talking about what a great worker he was. And the fact is that even in his age right now, if you put him with the right partner, he guaranteed today he could have a great match and an entertaining match with the right partner.
I
So,
think that was Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens.
oh, it's fantastic. Yes.
It was great.
Yeah, that exceeded expectations for me, and it was a thrill because I didn't follow wrestling during the Attitude Era, so I didn't tune in, you know, on Monday Night Raw or do any of that at that time. So it was kind of neat to actually see Stone Cold do something besides show up, stun somebody, and drink beer. You know, he actually had a match, so it was cool.
I thought all
You know,
in all that this was, if you're a wrestling fan, you absolutely. And Howie, I know you're not much of a movie fan, so I'm interested in your take. But if you're a wrestling fan, it's a must see. If you're a casual wrestling fan, it's a must see.
yeah, I'm not big on movies, but I enjoyed this movie extremely well. And the thing that got me was I didn't realize it, and me and you talked about it, Randy, the other day, and I don't know if Jeremy realizes this or not, but the movie was over 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's like we
He
wasn't in
didn't
there
realize.
but about 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thoughts was, wow, that was a quick movie. And it's one of those things where I don't like stuff that jumps from place to place or timeline to timeline. But this one here, the way they done it worked perfect.
Yeah.
I think staying true to the wrestling timelines helped too, because we all knew what they were before we walked in. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we all knew that Kerry was in the WWE soon after he was released and killed himself, and they bent the timeline some, but it also was pretty true to the timelines of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They had to combine some of it because if they didn't, we'd been in there for 4 hours.
We'd still be
And
there.
with someone that I heard the other day saying the movie is extremely good, but how much better could it have been if they made it into like a documentary, like a 6 to 8 hour documentary?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been a great the old mini series that were on TV that were like 4 or 5 nights. You do a great mini series out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually went back and watched that Dark Side of the Ring, which I don't know if you guys have invested much time in that on the Von Erichs. It's like 45 minutes long. And they do a pretty good job in 45 minutes. Now, of course, you can't like you said, you can't outline the whole whole careers, but I thought it told a pretty good story.
There's a ton. This has put me in for 2 weeks, and I've sent y'all a lot. 2 weeks, my YouTube mute, and I kind of got off of it this week, but the 2 weeks or the week after we went and seen the movie, my YouTube viewing was largely David Von matches.
Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't get to see all that. I saw Kerry and Kevin on ESPN, but that's another thing was slightly blurred. David was dead by the time the Von Erichs were on ESPN.
Yeah.
So you got Kerry and Kevin and Mike more than David.
Mm-hmm.
The ESPN's time slot started about the same time that David dies and Kerry wins the world title.
Mm-hmm.
So I give
All right,
it
guys.
an A-. Flair didn't just be horrible. I gave it an A. Horrible.
You took,
The Flair character is horrible.
On a Meltzer scale, we'll give it a half a star, if that.
Give the movie 4.5 stars and can't take a half star away from it for the Flair character.
And God love the guy. You know he done his best. It wasn't like he said, "I'm gonna hack this up," But
The one thing I heard to kind of protect him was playing Ric Flair would be like playing
it's
JFK in a serious movie. It's you can't just be. There's no Ric Flair. There's
no.
All right, Jeremy, your thoughts on the rating?
No, I mean I'll give it, as a whole, I'll give it A minus. I guess for me, the sign of a good movie is when it's over, you like, man, I would like to see some more. And that's kind of the way it left me. I wished there was some more to it. I wish they would have kind of maybe went into a little more detail on certain aspects, but for what they were able to do in a 2+ hour movie, I thought it was very good. So I mean I'm gonna give it an A as a wrestling fan, an A minus for sure.
As a movie, A-. As a wrestling fan, A+++++.
Oh yeah, anything. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I give it an A as well. A good movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
I would recommend this for anybody, really.
Mm-hmm.
Not just a sports or wrestling fan, just anybody,
Mm-hmm.
just a regular movie to watch.
Right.
All right, guys. Normally we talk about stuff in the past, but there's been so much stuff going on in the last couple of weeks, newsworthy. So we're going to keep it here modern day for tonight. The next week, by the end of the show, this is what we call a little teaser. But by the end of the show, I'll let you know what we'll be discussing coming up next week. But some of the news items that we're going to talk about this week is one of them is AEW had the World's Ends pay-per-view last weekend, and I thought overall it was pretty good from top to bottom, even the 0 hour. Jeremy, was you able to watch any of this?
I have not been able to watch this one. I do know this. What I've read, it's been very positive, good pay-per-view. AEW has never disappointed in any pay-per-view I've watched. It's never been a disappointment. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting to watch it here in the next week or so or next few days. But I heard good things about it.
Yeah. Randy, I know you was able to watch it. What's your thoughts on it?
I thought that main event was maybe the first time AEW took the long run telling a story over months that was a mystery that finally had the Scooby-Doo reveal of, hey, surprise. The first guy I thought of when it started a long time ago to be the devil was Adam Cole. Well, the story went around so many different turns and so many different ways. There was at least 5 guys. And I even sent you a picture of the masked henchman that looked very much like the Butcher and the Blade in those masks that turned out to be somebody else. AEW done the job they've ever done telling the long run story that went over months and months and months. And when it revealed, while you always had suspicion who it was, I was even shocked that Wardlow was on the other side, but it makes sense now.
Yeah.
So thought it was good.
So
Some of the preliminary matches were good. One of the best, if not the best, AEW pay-per-views.
Jeremy, you want to add?
Well, I do like, results wise, I do like the fact I have wanted to see a major belt on Samoa Joe for a long time.
Well
I think
deserved.
he's I think he's a deserving champion. I've always been a Samoa Joe fan all the way back to TNA, our Ring of Honor, and then in addition in WWE, they severely misused him. And I like seeing Samoa Joe with that AEW World Champion, and I think it's a legitimate. He could carry it for a while. There's a lot of people he could feud with. The devil situation, like Randall said, it was a long-term thing, and Randall's my God, he's dead. He's dead. They killed him. Uh, so the long-term thing, you thought, okay, it's got to be Adam Cole. Then you're like, oh, I don't know. Then you're like, and then when it's revealed, to me, it was a surprise. Not necessarily that it was Adam Cole, but Roderick Strong and those guys surprised me for some reason. It surprised me to find that out because they had that storyline with Roddy's neck, which people are crapping on that, but I loved it. I loved his gimmick with the neck. But I was actually kind of surprised that they were. I thought they had two separate storylines going, with MJF.
The best part of the reveal to me was an Adam Cole doesn't have the body, but the mental and the speaking ability of
Yep.
an 1980s heel like Ric Flair.
Yep.
Buddy, he reminds me of Buddy Landale for some reason so much. Nature Boy Buddy Landale. When he came in to save MJF and they put him in the chair and he lay, and it just the little move of laying his head forward where his hair is covering his face when the lights come back on and you have that of, are they about to whack him with a steel chair? What's going?
Yeah.
And he slowly moves his hair back and reveals his face, and he is the devil.
Yeah.
He pulls that mask out of the coat and he's hanging it. And I mean, even the reveal was done well. They didn't rush it. They let it build out that night. I like that group though, and AEW is guilty of putting together some of the worst groups in history. But you've got the King, Mike Bennett, and oh my God, I can't remember his name.
Matt Taven.
Matt Taven, Mike Bennett.
Yeah.
Mike Bennett, of course, Marie Kanellis' husband. Taven, a former world champion in ROH, a former NWA middleweight heavy champion of the world in Mexico, and then Wardlow, who I think they desperately needed to get tied to something, or they were going to him. And now is the heater, and then you've got the I even think, Jeremy, they tied up 3 storylines because you tie up the hatred Wardlow had for MJF.
Yes.
Too in the same, and that's been multiple years. Is that reveal was I thought it was really, really good. Also, some of the women's matches in AEW is finally coming to scale. There are finally some talent in AEW that's given the win division. I'm really fired up for this. Julia Hart, Abaddon, Chris Statlander. They finally have some women capable of producing good matches. If you believe the rumors, very much. Formerly known as Sasha Banks, Mercedes Monet will be the person joining AEW shortly. So that will do a lot of women's division.
So on that note, I don't know if you guys watched Dynamite last night, but there was another female who's very talented that made an appearance and is now part of that AEW roster in Deonna Purrazzo.
Yes.
I didn't think her. I thought it was kind of all right. I watched her come out and stuff. She's a good talent. She's a great talent and a former former TNA Impact World Champion. I'm looking forward to that. So that's another really good, solid female wrestler to be on that roster. To going forward.
And as of today, Will Ospreay's New Japan contract is expired.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's coming to AEW. Overall, I thought the AEW was good. And I'm going to give a shout out to those co-main event or the semi-main events. The last full hour of the pay-per-view was just great. Here's what I want to see moving forward. And I think this is a perfect time to build your core foundation by letting the four pillars unite under the same umbrella to feud with Adam Cole and the other guys, because you saw him turn Sammy Guevara right before this. The Jungle Boy character is lost and needs to find someplace to build. And Darby Allin's kind of homeless after Sting leaves AEW. So right now you've got your four pillars, you called them, without much direction in their career. So be a good time to maybe down the road with the pillars versus the henchmen. I love it.
Well, I mean, I'm good with 3/4 of that, but Jungle Boy, he can go take a hike, in my opinion. So,
well, a lot of that stems from the CM Punk thing, and it's like if you're going to go over the CM Punk thing with CM Punk, you got to kind of like say, okay, what are we going to do with Jungle Boy? And to me, I don't want to see Jungle Boy. I want to see Jack Perry.
Yeah. I agree. He's got that. That's got to be a lost thing, and he's got to come in using that same arrogant, Christian Cage-ish demeanor. Yep. And I think it works. I would hate him. You know what I mean? I'd hate him, and that's what you want to do as a heel. I think they need to be heels. See, he needs to be a heel. I don't think he can be a baby face.
Well, I don't know. The devil and his henchmen can't become baby faces with MJF out. So look, the thing of it, Howie, is they took MJF off the website, and from everything I've been able to read, he's really banged up. And he's defended that title on every major show they've had for the last year, and from what I understand, it's just Roman Reigns has had 58 title defenses in like 3 years, 4 years.
How long has he been a champion? 10 years.
So, there's also the fact that MJF's, still very young, and he sometimes takes some. I won't call him injury prone, but he seems to take some things that injures him.
Well, so that's my one gripe, I guess my biggest gripe with the AEW, and it falls in line, I guess, with what other people feel, but the type of risk that they take that they don't need to take, and then you equate that with the number of injuries they have. I mean, I know, look, WWE talent gets hurt too. I get it. Charlotte's out for an indefinite period of time, but it wasn't necessarily overdoing something stupid. It was just a mistake. But this cinder blocks, all this crap, I'm done with it. When you bring them out all the time, who cares? It's cinder blocks. It's this. It's that.
I think is the one guy that's smart and just got beat up over time.
Yeah, he has. But to his credit, he has defended that title.
Yeah,
and he's been a weekly participant. Yeah, to his credit, he's done that as champion. And I think that's what you need. But then I'm kind of in the middle between, you got the Roman Reigns example, and then I'm kind of in the middle. I don't think the champion should be there every week defending his title, or even sometimes not even making appearances. But then I don't think he needs to go for months without defending the title. And less is more. Back half of the Undertaker's career, I mean, you didn't see the Undertaker every Monday Night Raw or every Friday Night SmackDown, but when you saw him, I got chills every time. He would show up, and I'd be, oh God, the Undertaker's here. To me, that's kind of the same thing with your champion.
I think 8 more this story, because there's no way that Adam Cole versus MJF is not the main event to Wembley 2024.
I don't know that. I think if MJF is banged up and he has to have surgery and be out for a period of time, I think it's perfect. He can make that return healthy. Hopefully, Adam Cole will be healthy at that point, and he comes back to get vengeance on the devil and everything that's happened. And so I think that'd be a great story to go into Wembley with for sure.
Yeah.
And the title isn't necessary.
No,
they don't even need the title. They got the story for it.
Yeah, and there's so much you can do with Joe. That's why I was going to ask Howie. I was thinking about it. There's so much you can do now with Samoa Joe versus Will Ospreay, Samoa Joe versus Bryan Daniels. There's a lot of good matches out there that carry you through the winter and the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And with y'all kind of jumped ahead of me a little bit, which is fine. But with the unveiling of the devil, the monster.
Yeah, that's what it is, Howie. If you're wondering what's going on, it's this.
But with the devil being revealed as Adam Cole right after Samoa Joe won the title, it didn't take nothing away from Samoa Joe winning the title at all.
Mm-mm.
It didn't overshadow it at all. That was something that in the past you would be worried about with AEW overshadowing something, but this pay-per-view worked out extremely well with all of it, even to the point to where with Switchblade winning the Battle Royal for a title shot at the TNT title, and then Adam Copeland and Christian going against each other, and with Adam beating him, then Switchblade gave Killswitch. That's right. Killswitch gave Christian the title shot, so he won it back 11 seconds later.
Yeah,
that's building. It's been that way. He's talking about long term. How long has this been going on? You keep waiting on Killswitch / Luchasaurus. He's going to have enough, and it's going to be great when he does. On Christian.
And you saw it a little bit last night on Dynamite.
I did too. I did see that. I noticed that. I was like, they're really playing it up in the ring, being visibly, and you hadn't seen that in the past necessarily, but looked like he was conflicted. He's like, wait a minute, I'm getting screwed here. That type thing.
I didn't like the segment, and particularly with the Swerve in it, but AEW is building Swerve into something special too. I think Swerve has that AEW title in his future too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I like Swerve a lot, and he can go.
And here we are talking about World's Ends and all the matches and all that, and probably the match of the night was Eddie Kingston against John Moxley.
Yes, it was, and
we hadn't even mentioned nothing about it.
Hey, let me just. I don't care what about wrestling. I'm not the biggest Moxley fan in the world, but he cleanly put Eddie Kingston over in the ring, and I respect a guy that can be a star. And probably for the 3 years of AEW, he has been the biggest star that goes and puts a guy that deserves it, that has earned it, that is now the first AEW Triple Crown champion, and. There was a million reasons not to have Eddie Kingston win that tournament. A million of them. He's not markable. He don't look like a wrestler. He don't even wrestle like a wrestler. But a credit for them giving just a good guy
Yeah.
a great spot.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's a long time coming that Eddie gets a title. I think he's great on the mic. I think he's one of the best. He's real. People can relate to him. Now, again, if we're judging by physiques and stuff, he's not going to win any contest. But neither did Dusty Rhodes. So,
Kingston looks like he should be the fourth guy in this panel right here.
Yeah, that's great, Howie. Yes, if there's ever been a true statement, that is it. Absolutely. But he could kick all our ears at once, So
But
I love it.
Quick question about Randy. Did you say Dynamite last night? Have you saw it?
Yes.
Did y'all notice the Dusty Rhodes that was in the front row with the polka dots on during?
No, I didn't notice it.
Did you see it, Randy?
Yes. Yeah.
He had the blonde hair and he had the yellow or the gold and the black polka dot outfit that Dusty wore back in WWE. Looked just like him. I mean, big old guy too. So
nice.
But anyway, all right. Deanna Perazi showed up last night. We touched on that a little bit. She showed up at Dynamite last night, and I think that's going to be a big asset to the women's division. There's talks that, and Randy, you already touched on it, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné is in talks with AEW again, and from what I kind of read and heard, her talks with WWE has kind of broke down because of the money that she was wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So, two big female wrestlers coming into AEW. So here's my question to both of y'all. If they get enough women in there, do you think Tony Khan will pull the trigger and have a women's wrestling show?
I've never thought of that. Their TV's not in the greatest shape, and it's been talked about a lot. And I do think they're going to more of a streaming format. I could see a women's only show in the position like ROH is right now, where it's online secondary show. Hey, and I was the biggest ROH fan in the world, and he's not doing a bad job with ROH. And the guys he's got over there are kind of brought up to AEW and make an appearance. But I could see him doing that, almost a development. The thing that tickles me the most about the women's division, and I thought of that, Howie, I think the most jobbed out woman in the AEW roster now is Riho, because that's her job, is to lose to everybody now.
She weighs 70 pounds. She should lose.
That was their complaint, is they put her at the title on her, and now it's like she is. I think they're using it effectively to get over some other wrestlers.
And I don't mean that bad, but and I know we all have to suspend belief a little bit to enjoy wrestling. So we all know things happen. You're like, she's 70 pounds. There's hardly no way to make that believable.
Thing about Darby, he's maybe 150, but he makes it believable.
It's more believable, absolutely. And another thing is, though, that's a great role for her,
gatekeeper,
because she makes people look strong. So Darby does the same thing. He made, who was he wrestling the other night?
Last night.
He wrestled Takeshita. I mean, he made Takeshita look like a beast, throwing him around.
Like Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, is what he looked like wrestling.
Right. So
calling him around and everything.
So Riho world title, Riho could put people over, and maybe every once in a while that underdog sneaks and gets an inside cradle, or the schoolboy or whatever, and win. That's perfect for her, but it's believable.
Hey, I have one question before we go on the next subject for both of you. It was something I thought may occur, and it didn't. There was a reuniting of Chris Jericho with Sammy Guevara as Lee Sex Gods. But did you ever start to think that maybe that you were going to see the Big Show, formerly Big Show, Paul White and Jericho at the pay-per-view and a reunited Jericho show? Because I was convinced up until the week before that's what we were going to get would be Chris Jericho and Paul White as a tag team again. But it didn't work out.
That was a good team in WWE.
Yeah, I thought
I really did. I enjoyed that team.
I thought that would have been a better warm off for the pay-per-view than Jericho and Guevara.
I'm about worn out with Jericho. I'll be honest with you guys. I think he needs to kind of ease on into the sunset.
Well, I think he's trying the boost, but
yeah, he's great on commentary. I like listening to him on commentary. But his wrestling,
Jericho during the COVID wrestling matches, being a commentator, that would.
It was great. It was fantastic. Schiavone.
So, any last comments on the AEW before we move on to the WWE?
No. Let me bring. Speaking of Jericho, y'all read anything about these allegations against Jericho?
I
have. Look, I don't believe anything unless it's. I mean, it's hearsay to me. I don't care what report it's coming from or whatever. You know, I'm wondering how that's going to turn out. You know, if it's going to be his undoing. It could be. You know, and if he's guilty of doing anything that is strictly it is out of the way, then sure, suffer the consequences. But I won't see anybody suffer consequences for something they didn't do. You know.
Right.
That's all I'll say about that. If you did it, you deserve what you get. If you don't deserve to get killed for it.
The drama that will never end in the world of wrestling is CM Punk and AEW.
Oh, that, yeah.
And I think this grew out of that. And
probably
closures and this. The one thing that'll kill AEW is AEW.
Yes.
That's the only thing that'll, because Tony Khan is got 5 TV preachers.
Yeah.
We don't need the image portrayed that's being portrayed now. I put it that way.
Yeah.
And look, Chris Jericho's the reason AEW got his first footage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But even legends need to, Vince McMahon retired Ric Flair. Mm-hmm. There's a time for a legend to go riding off in the sunset.
Yeah, and there's plenty of, it ain't like Chris Jericho ain't got anything to do. I mean,
bringing back one-off matches everywhere.
Oh heck yeah! But I get, to me, it almost feels like, the criticism of Dusty back in the day. As good as Dusty was, he always tried to make sure whatever the booking was, he got himself inserted in one of the better positions. And to me, even though, and Jericho hadn't done that recently, but to me, he's always reaching to try to get himself into the prime spot, which you can't blame him, but it's not time for him. Time's to come and gone. And, recognize that and work to promote the other guys. And you don't have to be in the main event with Sammy Guevara, or you don't have to put Action Andretti over for or whatever. You do those things, but you don't have to be front and center. I don't know. I'm just about tired. I'm done. I think you need to ride off in the sunset. Thank you, Chris.
Well, it's going to be hard for him to ride off with a 10-year contract that he signed.
Oh, I know it. He's going to be 60 years old. It's going to be like Ric Flair wrestling. We're going to go to Chris Jericho's last match at 82 years old. Which, by the way, did I send y'all that picture of Chick Donovan at nearly 80 years old? Still wrestling. Look, still jacked. Chick Donovan. Look him up.
Mike Jackson is 80 and he's still
Jackson, Mike Jackson. But he ain't Jack like Chick Donovan is.
All right, guys, let's move over to WWE for a few minutes. And, of course, the huge news out of WWE was the return of The Rock on Raw Monday night. First time in years that I can remember The Rock being back on Raw. He was on SmackDown last year, but as far as being on Raw, it's been quite a while. And with him showing up was not the big thing. What he said to close out his promo was the big thing, saying that he wants to sit at the head of the table. How do you think this is going to affect Roman Reigns, and when do you think this will actually take place? Jeremy, we'll start with you.
Well, I think a lot of wrestling people, that's been speculated, even WrestleMania last year, Rock, Reigns. I think it needs to happen. I do. But my question is, where do you go with that? You can't let Rock can't beat Reigns. Are you going to put the title on the Rock and then him turn around and drop it, a week later? And then when it happens, it's got to happen on WrestleMania. I think, now here's what I think, and I won't shut up about that. Anytime Rock shows up, just like anytime Stone Cold showed up, when you hear that, if you smell, the place goes nuts. If you hear the glass break when Stone Cold, it'll be that way till they're 80 years old, if they're any semblance of themselves. I think he's gonna have to have a match of some kind between now and WrestleMania and get into ring shape. He's always in shape, right? But get in ring shape. So I think they're gonna build something, and it's gonna lead to maybe a match with Solo, maybe a match, and they interfere. I don't know. But they got to build it, right? It can't just say, hey, Rock Reigns at WrestleMania, and that's it. So I think he's going to wrestle. It's going to happen at WrestleMania, in my opinion, as it should. But I think he's going to wrestle maybe more than once, maybe twice at a big event between now and then against an opponent that's probably associated with the bloodline. That's just my thought.
All right, Randy, your thoughts.
Listen, I know y'all didn't watch all the Young Rock, but this has been building since the Young Rock was a scene in the Young Rock where a young Roman Reigns is crawling on a young Rock and wanting to wrestle. And the Rock says in the script of the show, this match would have to take place at WrestleMania because it could be the only place. So for years, I think this has been. I think last year it didn't happen in LA because, look, I don't think the general public understands what it takes for The Rock or John Cena to come do a match. You can't have a movie on your schedule. It's not like you can record a movie the next week with bruises on your body and face. It's a very sensitive thing when it comes to timing. And I don't think last year the timing was appropriate.
Right.
The thing The Rock was doing was interfering with it. I think they tried to last year and it just didn't happen. I think The Rock desperately wants attention right now with his new venture with the UFL, taking the USFL and XFL and now combined in what I think is a much more
viable,
good word, viable product that you look at it. Where have you put your teams? Birmingham, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee. What are you calling the Memphis team? The Showboats. What are you calling the Birmingham team? I think it's got a chance.
No,
I really think
Stallion. Yeah,
it's got a chance.
It does. Yeah.
So you right now, if you're The Rock, eyes on you are very, very important.
And those I know this is wrestling, but these teams are not being coached by Nobody's. They're being coached by
No.
former,
Bob Stoops types.
Yeah.
yes,
Bob
former
Stoops,
big time coaches.
Yeah.
Skip
Dick
Holtz.
Phillips is coaching one team.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that we saw part of the storyline play out when the Roman Reigns anointed it Solo the next head of the table. So that
That's
sets
where
up.
you match.
That's setting up the first step in this,
Mm-hmm.
which is The Rock versus Solo. Good for the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Eyes on the product of pro wrestling is good. Don't let this overshadow the rest of WrestleMania because it has the potential to.
Yes.
The Rock, Xena headlining a WrestleMania destroyed the rest of the card because nobody cared about anything. The Rock, Hulk Hogan, literally made the main event of Chris Jericho and Triple H. There was 10 million
Yeah.
TVs after The Rock and Hulk Hogan wrestled.
Yeah.
So you've got to do it right, Howie, and you can't let it overshadow the rest of the show because the rest of those boys and girls are there year round. You
Yeah.
still got the right places.
So and not only that, but you still have high level hot talent. You still got Cody. You still got LA Knight. You still got Seth Rollins. You still got Gunther. And that's just to name a few that they're really, really, really doing well. And so I agree with you, Randall. Don't let that be the centerpiece of your WrestleMania.
The
You know,
possible Brock Lesnar WrestleMania
oh yeah.
that will stand its own against Rock and Roman Reigns
Oh yeah, I'd rather watch that, to be honest with you.
versus Seth Rollins. That might stand the test to be able to be. If you're talking one night, you're going to have Gunther and Brock, and then Cody and Seth, and the other night you have the Rock Rollins. You've got two good nights of entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And the beauty, and it was a stroke of genius to go to 2 night WrestleMania. It allows you to give more people a high level, the main event spots for their talent, you
Yeah.
know. And it's not exhausting to watch. I love it. So I watched the first night. It's like, man, I can't wait till tomorrow night. You know.
I admit I lose interest after night one. I'm really good on night one. Night two becomes I enjoy it, but I watch it different. I can't explain it.
You
Night
don't
one,
fit.
I don't walk out from the TV. Night two is I order pizza and I make popcorn and I'm kind of all over the place until the main event. So
Yeah.
And y'all are talking about WrestleMania being where it's at and all that. There, something I heard today is Elimination Chamber down in Australia in a couple of months.
I did
Could be
hear that as well.
that Australia specifically asked for The Rock and basically said, we will pay whatever it takes to get him there.
they could get the rent a little cheaper.
Yeah. So
Think about this. Here's how crazy the world is now. There was a day, and if I do remember correctly, the Jim Barnett was a promoter in Australia. There was a time that they had to foot the bill to travel, to put on a show, to rent the buildings, and hope they get a gate. And now you got places paying. We'll pay you to come to us. And so they're guaranteed to make money whether the gate is there or not. Unreal.
So we're talking about The Rock appearing and all this. Let's give as the young kids say now, let's give the flowers to Jinder Mahal for being the
Yeah.
clown to come out there, knowing what was going to happen. And, y'all watched Raw just like I did. And they said, here comes the former champion. And everybody's up with their phones up, getting ready to take the pictures or
Great.
videos and all that. Then all of a sudden, Jinder Mahal comes
Jinder
walking.
Mahal. I thought it
knowing
was
that,
great.
yeah, but him knowing that he's fixing to get overshadowed big time by The Rock
Yeah.
here in about 5 minutes.
Well,
Hats off to Jinder Mahal for being willing to do that.
Yes.
his whole championship reign is kind of that way, though. The whole world wanted him to lose it,
So here, and I think that all the way back when he was a champion, Howie. Hats off to Jinder Mahal. He played his part well.
Yeah.
He is a straight up heel. His demeanor, everything about him. He's the kind of guy that you want to see. I hope somebody kicks his rear. Perfect guy. He's one of those guys. He's one of those Mr. Reliables to me, like R-Truth it has been all these years. By the way, who's back? And the Dolph Ziggler's, who's no longer with the company now, but he's always been one of those guys that they can rely on, and he'll do whatever they give him, he does it, and he does it well.
Speaking of Dolph Ziggler, I guess y'all saw where he showed up at New Japan Pro Wrestling last night.
Yes. I have not watched it. I expected Dolph to show up. He seemed very interested in being in New Japan. And I think when the greatest thing AEW has done is been able to do some talent swapping. Just because he opens up in New Japan, don't mean we don't see him in AEW at some point.
Right.
So, we're about $25 million for the formerly known as Sasha Banks.
Yep.
If you go to Japan for 3 months a year and recover $2 million of that, then that contract looks a whole lot more like Becky Lynch's contract. Where the WWE doesn't. That's the only advantage I see that the AEW has over the WWE as far as salary. I'm sure a lot of this salary gets shared. The Japanese talent, AEW pays them, and the New Japan Wrestling, and they've even worked with All Japan with Sting and Darby. I'm sure they get some advantage of it. I think that's good for New Japan to have. They needed that with losing Will Ospreay. They need somebody else to be that guiding. You think about it. Jay White was the guy. So they lost. Here's been the AJ Styles was their lead guiding American bad guy, replaced by Finn Balor as their lead American bad guy, replaced by Kenny Omega as their lead bad guy, who was replaced by Jay White as their lead bad guy, who was replaced by Will Ospreay as their So that position is very important in New Japan Wrestling.
Yep.
To be that American heel, that pretty boy American heel. So I don't think you could go get anybody. And hey, everybody, Dolph Ziggler is going to be a huge star in New Japan because those bums the WWE got rolling around the ring that can't wrestle, they've got some that can, that don't get used. Dolph Ziggler. Who's the guy in the short guy, Shorty, what's Chad Gable. These are all guys that are great.
Yeah. They're amateur wrestlers. Dolph Ziggler, an amateur wrestler. Chad Gable, amateur wrestler, to your point. So anybody that's afraid that, well, that WWE style, they won't be able to do it over here. Well, yeah, I think Dolph Ziggler could. I think he would be able to hold his own because of that amateur background that he has as a wrestler.
Well, I think the Kenny Omega style that doesn't work here in the U.S. a lot of times made him the hugest star in Japan. And now Dolph Ziggler is more than capable of working that. Also, New Japan and AEW, it's not been well televised, but Kota Ibushi suffered a very serious injury, and he's probably out. He's probably out even longer than Kenny Omega. So you're not going to Kota Ibushi back in the States for a very long time.
Yep.
Last night's Dynamite didn't have a ton of star power because they were at the New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Moxley was over there in one of the main events, and Kingston holds the New Japan Openweight Heavyweight Championship, which in New Japan that would be almost like a hardcore title, a little more legit. The Openweight is just basically come as you are and fight. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. Dynamite gets hurt when New Japan's running a big event. So,
well, you had Bryan Danielson there as well. Didn't he wrestle Okada last night?
Yeah.
Or when it? Yeah. So,
listen, boys, I got up at 4:00 in the morning and watched all I could watch, and finally fell back to sleep. So I'm gonna watch the rest of it here in a little bit. I've got it recorded. I love New Japan wrestling. I was hoping AEW was going to be an American version of New Japan, but they ain't got there yet. So I would much rather watch New Japan's in June. January the 4th is New Japan's WrestleMania, and I think it's been a better event than WrestleMania or Wembley last 3 out of 4 years. So that it's a good event. It's a really good event.
I want to jump back over to WWE real quick. Jeremy brought this person up just a few minutes ago. R-Truth. He was in a match Monday night on Raw. I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but it was him. I can't remember who his tag partner was, but going against Judgment Day's Dominic and the
McDonough.
Yeah.
Yeah, JD McDonough.
And R-Truth was very confused on which team he's really supposed to be on. And at one time, neutral corner trying to get a tag from his tag partner. Not only is he a good worker, I mean, he does great, but the entertainment value that he brings to the matches is bar none. I mean, one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, Ron Killings will never get the credit he deserves.
Yes. I want to Google something about Ron Killings. Go ahead, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, he'll never get the credit that he deserves. I mean, there's not been anything that he's been involved in that I hated. I always love it. I'm always entertained by it, and I always laugh. And he knows his role. I think he understands his role, and I think he does it super, super good.
Yeah, I got to figure out. I got to find out who is actually who was his partner. But go ahead, Randy.
51 years old.
And still looks fantastic.
He has been. Listen, he is the pillar stone they built TNA on back in the 90s when Jeff Jarrett started it and Jerry started it. He Raven, Jeff Jarrett, America's Most Wanted, before CM Punk, AJ Styles. That's what built TNA before it got on TV. And you paid $9.95 a week to get the stream of their weekly show. And look, man, I hate to admit it now, but I was spending $500 a year to watch TNA. But Ron the Truth Killings has been around for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And still the funniest promo that I've ever heard was on John Cena after somehow he got a world title match. And the Truth comes out in Virginia in a Confederate uniform and cuts the funniest, the only promo that I could see Vince McMahon and John Cena just was scared what he was going to do next.
His tag team partner Monday night was The Miz.
Hey, got a shot to turn Miz's face and make some money out of it. And I ain't serious.
Yeah, so basically what happened was the Miz had Miz TV on, and his guests were going to be the Judgment Day. Well, the Judgment Day music starts playing, then the only person you see coming out is R-Truth.
Yeah.
Miz is like, "Hey, where's Judgment Day at?" He's like, "Well, they were right behind me." And the Miz was like, "Hey, is this another Little Jimmy type deal? You know, you see them, but nobody else does." So Little Jimmy made an appearance on Monday Night Raw this past Monday night.
Oh, I loved Little Jimmy. I loved it. That and then the 24/7 title run, which I think we talked about this last time we were together. And then you couple that his tag team was Gold Dust. They called the Golden Truth, and that was very brief, but I thought it was great. I thought it was fantastic.
Here he is, 51 years old, and he's
51.
still doing the split thing where he jumps up and lands doing the splits.
Yes. I
But
love our truth.
if you didn't see if you didn't see it Monday night, try to go back and watch it because he was so confused as far as who his tag partners was because he thought he's supposed to be part of Judgment Day, but he
Yeah.
was Miz's partner. And instead of one standing in this corner, one standing over here in this other corner, he was standing in the neutral corner because he wasn't sure where he's supposed to be at. So it was a great segment, but
How about
you know,
how about a little shout out to the 10-second dance break with Carmella? Used to be just my favorite moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Roll Tide on that.
yeah, it's really, really good. So, guys, y'all have
Yeah.
any closing comments? We've been on here a little bit over an hour now, and
Yeah.
like I said, I'll give y'all what we're going to be talking about next week here in a second. So, Jeremy, closing comments on anything?
Well, I mean, we've said this. I think we got together last time, but we kind of football season, high school football season, kind of takes precedence for us, and you guys do a great job with Sylvania and handling them and everything. So it's really good. Hopefully, we can get in a cycle, a weekly groove. For anybody listening, man, I'm just glad you listened to us ramble and carry on, and we're very professional, as you can tell, but I appreciate it, and it's good to talk wrestling, and I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, in that note, this is the one show on River City Media that I just step on, and I'm Randall, and it's nice. I'm not trying to cultivate questions for Coach Van, or I'm not talking to Phil and
Yeah.
trying to host a show, and we've usually got a guest on there, so we might have Coach Benefield on there, and then we have a Georgia segment, a Tennessee segment, a North Carolina segment, and then I do my high school preview shows where I've got to every time I do one, I gotta be an expert on that high school by the time I interview that coach. This is the one time I get to put my hair down. And folks, you can laugh at me all you want, but I love pro wrestling. And
Yeah.
I love sports entertainment, but I love pro wrestling. So my final words is to wrap up the Orange Claw for me. It is the most excited I have been to go see a movie in a very long time. And it's because I know kayfabe doesn't exist anymore, but what I do love still has a stigmatism about it. And some
Mm-hmm.
people look at it and say, there's a very famous meme going around Reels where this guy's out on the street interviewing people, and he asks this girl, what does she hate in somebody? And she goes, pro wrestling. And just real. I don't care if you like pro wrestling. You can still follow all the other stuff we do on River City Media, but it's fun to get on here and just talk about something we enjoy. And we might start on point X and go to point Z and then back to point N. So,
Yeah.
like this show, please like and follow. Like and follow River
Yeah,
City.
absolutely.
This is not how we make our living, but we do have bills we have to pay every week. Every month, I have software bills. I have internet access bills. To bring this here where a normal home internet may be $50 a month, I have to pay $100 a month, or every one of us would just be a jumbled mess. So River City Media don't need anything from you other than a follow. We ain't asking you for money. We don't ask for subscriptions, but it is very important that we get follows. So if you like this show or anything we do, liking and following us and leaving some positive reviews means more for me as far as keeping the shows on the air and generating a little revenue to keep us all on the air. So it's not hard to hit like. That's all we have.
So Randall, I mean, I know we're going long and we're doing what we do, but to that point, and there's probably people like myself over the last 7 years or so, 8 years maybe, podcasts have become a bigger thing, the availability of podcasts. And I've done a lot of traveling over the last 7 or 8 years over the road. And so one thing, it's been so fun to get on the road, take a road trip and listen to hours of podcasts, legends talking about their careers, guys just giving their opinions and all that. And then in addition to that, when the COVID situation, I'm telling you, wrestling and podcasts and professional wrestling really was an escape for me because the world was weird. Everybody agrees with that. The whole world was strange. But I looked forward to every wrestling show, even if it was an empty arena, or every wrestling podcast, and it does help people. I mean, it's an escape sometimes. So, I really appreciate it.
I think we have our own niche too, that every other wrestling show is based on some ex-wrestler or some ex-wrestling personality. We really are a wrestling show for the fans, by the fans, and of the fans, because that's what we are. We don't talk about it from like, did you see that leg press that he executed? It made it look so real. Well, we're on here talking about little Jimmy making us laugh. That's what.
Yes, and he does. I haven't seen him, but he makes me laugh.
That's it. I mean, we are fans, so like and follow. And Howie, that's it for the night. We will try our best to keep this running year round. We tried once before, but it is so hard during football season. Maybe we can get 3 or 4 episodes recorded ahead that I could have in the bag, and when we can't do an episode, we can release that. So during this time of year, we're going to try to get you enough episodes ahead so that this will go year round.
And we're able to do that because we're not necessarily always talking about current stuff either. Because there's too much of that out there already.
Yeah.
The only reason we're doing current stuff today was because it was pretty, the last 2 weeks have been pretty news heavy, and it's been interesting to see. So next week, join us, hopefully on Thursday night, when these two guys will be telling you your all-time top 10 finishers.
Ooh, like that one. Hey,
nice.
And you got to, hey, I will tell you now, Jeremy, I am going to take into effect that, in the 80s, the super kick was a finisher. Now the super kick is the same as a chop to the chest. So
yeah, I don't even want to get started on that.
I think it's going to be, got to have to judge it a little different.
So a Canadian destroyer is a chop to the chest nowadays.
Yes.
They'll do one on somebody and they'll jump up and do it on them and no effect whatsoever. Don't get me started on that.
Let me ask y'all one quick question as far as moves and everything. And I'd like an answer from both of you, and I'll start with Jeremy. Jeremy, what's the one move that you miss seeing now that you used to see a lot back in the day?
2 things. This just goes back to my Jim Crockett slingshot suplex, the belly-to-belly suplex. When I say that, I'm thinking about Tully Blanchard, and I'm thinking about Magnum TA. Belly-to-belly suplex. my two favorites.
Randy,
I'm gonna throw Spinebuster in there, but we still see Spinebusters, and I still get excited when I see them.
Randy, how about you?
I don't think we see a true superplex anymore, where somebody goes to the top rope. Barry Windham, to me, had the best superplex. You take somebody, set them on the top row, and cleanly suplex them off. There's all kinds of stuff off the top row. But the one to sum up kind of I've been thinking about it. The greatest move in wrestling might be the Iron Claw. And nobody uses the Iron Claw no more. And the Von Erichs, it wasn't just the Von Erichs that used the Spoiler used the Iron Claw. The Great Muta had a version of the Iron Claw. And I can't think of one person besides the Von Erichs, Marshall and Ross, that uses the claw in the wrestling ring anymore. So
I know this is going to sound stupid, but the move that I miss seeing the most is just a regular old body slam.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
Schoolboy.
Yeah.
You just don't see a regular body slam no more.
Or running ropes where people jump, leapfrog arm draw, get it. Well, back when I did my little bit of wrestling, that was the first thing you learn in wrestling is to run the ropes, do a leapfrog, grab an arm bar out of it, and throw somebody. So that's the first set of moves that everybody that ever trained in the 70s or 80s learned was hit the ropes, leapfrog, grab an arm bar, do it again.
I think Jeremy's already writing down some of his top 10 finishers.
I'm sitting there writing. I'm brainstorming, and I'm just gonna write a bunch down, and then I'm gonna go from there. So,
but the Canadian Destroyer is on my list.
But
I mean, it's fantastic, but it's nothing now.
You know, that's the thing that we text and we talk all the time through the week.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys do not know what I'm going to say is the next
time. No, I love it.
We just found out.
So when they find out what we're talking about is when you find out what we're talking about. And Randy called me today, tried to find out what we was going to be discussing today, and I wouldn't tell him.
Yeah.
So let me clarify, Howie. When we're talking about finishers, are we talking about submissions or actual finishers?
Whatever you think is the best finisher.
Okay.
If you think, I know you're going to think Ric Flair's figure 4 is probably the best finisher.
He never won a match with it.
Hey, I can tell you that I thought I think still going to be number 1 on my list. And I still think it's the greatest finisher in wrestling. So I think number 1 is already defined in my list.
Don't tell it. We want people to listen next week.
Well, and I don't want you to know what it is, so it's not on your list. So you go, oh my God, stupid am I?
Well, I'm debating on how far back I want to go, or if I want to reach way back, or just I'm just brainstorming. So we'll find out. I love this topic though.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Thursday at 8:00, and we'll see you then. Take us out of here, Howie.
I am the host, the Howie Cheney, with the stars, JJ, Randall, QB1. Join us next week when you might hear Jeremy Johnson say,
Motor City Machine Guns win the title.
Good night and God bless.